Making your way in the world today takes everything you've got. Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to get away? Sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. You wanna be where you can see our troubles are all the same. You wanna be where everybody knows your name. You wanna go where people know people are all the same. You wanna go where everybody knows your name.
You remember the good old days when TV shows had theme songs? We had this thing called the Thursday night lineup that we all enjoyed, and that is one of the signature songs from that Thursday night lineup back in the day on NBC. The theme, of course, to Cheers, and as I am certain that the young lady working on the other side of the glass today as our board operator, emphasis on the young, I'm pretty sure when I say that Jen Tan heard that opening song today, I thought, oh, that's a nice little song. Zero idea why we're playing it, that there was even a sitcom once called Cheers. Hey, Jen, go check out Cheers sometime, okay? I'm sure it's on YouTube. Ask your parents about it. It was funny, and it featured a character by the name of Norm, who, of course, was played by the actor George Wendt, who we learned yesterday passed away at the age of 76. Died peacefully, though, we are told, at home, which is, I think, something that we would all hope for at that time. But George Wendt's portrayal of Norm stands the test of time, and a little preview for Jen and a reminder for you, if you've never seen the show, this is what you missed, and if you did, you remember Norm.
Norman?
Beer, Norm?
Nah, I'd probably just drink it.
Norman?
What's doing, Norm?
Well, science is seeking a cure for thirst. I happen to be the guinea pig.
Beer, Norm?
That's that sudsy amber stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been hearing good things about it.
What can I do for you, Norm?
Well, I am going to need something to kill time before my second beer. How about a first one?
What do you say, Norm?
Well, I never met a beer I didn't drink.
Hey, what's happening, Norm?
It's a dog-eat-dog world, Sammy, and I'm wearing milk-bone underwear.
That is my absolute favorite. It's a dog-eat-dog world, Sammy, and I'm eating milk-bone underwear. Never met a beer I didn't want to drink. George Wendt, as Norm, was our everyman, and he passes away yesterday at the age of 76. It is a Wednesday morning, the 21st of May, despite what the weather is making you feel. Like, it feels like the 21st of October or something out there. Cold and wet today, just like a dog's nose. It's going to be like that for the next couple of days. But I promise you this, okay? My commitment to you is, well, a little bit of cool and a little bit of drizzle isn't going to stop us. But I think the weather will clear just in time for our Farwell for Hire car wash on Saturday at Fire Headquarters in Kitchener, 270 Strasbourg Road. Why don't you bring the family vehicle by between 12:30 and 3 Saturday at Kitchener Fire Headquarters, Strasbourg Road, 270 Strasbourg, right there near the corner of Strasbourg and Ottawa. We will wash your car for you in exchange for a donation to cystic fibrosis research. Sounds like a plan, right? 12:30 until 3 on Saturday. Come and see us at Kitchener Fire Headquarters, Strasbourg Road in Kitchener, and we'll get that car washed for you in support of Farwell for Hire. Speaking of support, how about the city of Kitchener? How about the local pop-up today? You can pop up and support local, shop local, buy local, unless starting next year that pop-up is a fireworks vendor. Forget that then in the city of Kitchener or Waterloo. They're going to ban the... So you can sell things, you can pop up with things in Kitchener. They want to support you, local businesses, unless you sell those nasty, wasty fireworks. No, you can't do that. But isn't it funny? It's called a pop-up. What sound does a firecracker make? It's a pop. but you can't. Fireworks vendors, your local business doesn't matter in Kitchener or Waterloo starting next year. We'll talk more about that coming up.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
7, 8, 9, 10. Let's go with 5, okay? The Farwell Show 5 for this Wednesday morning. Number 1, a performance venue, a restaurant, and an elementary school. What do these three things have in common? Each of them have been added to the list of possible public measles exposures in the region. Public Health says people may have been exposed to the measles last week at Centre in the Square, Langdon Hall, and Franklin Public School. There are now 61 potential exposure locations around Waterloo region, and you thought the measles was done for. Number 2, U.S. President Donald Trump says Canada will pay its fair share of his, quote, Golden Dome missile defense shield. Trump claims Canada asked to be involved, and he says it makes sense for the country to be a part of it. He says the system will be able to intercept missiles launched from the other side of the world or even from space. Trump claims the price tag on his complex system will be $175 billion, and he says it will be finished within his term, which ends in 2029. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, thousands of Canada Post employees could be setting up new picket lines in less than 48 hours. Canada Post says it got a strike notice earlier this week from the union representing more than 55,000 postal workers. And employees plan to walk out starting early Friday. A work stoppage would affect millions of residents and businesses who typically get more than 2 billion letters and roughly 300 million parcels a year via Canada Post. We're talking about it on the show this morning at 9:30. Number 4, the head of one of Canada's largest federal unions, says the last government made some questionable decisions that cost it the trust of workers. Nathan Pryor of the Canadian Association of Professional Employees says Ottawa now needs to work on repairing the damaged relationship between public servants and management. Pryor says there's been a sense of unease among federal workers since the previous government cut staffing in several departments and agencies. Prime Minister Mark Carney has vowed to cap the federal public service. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, the City of Kitchener is inviting residents for an up-close look at the jobs that public works staff handle throughout the year. The city hosting an open house and family fun night tonight from 5 until 8 at the Kitchener Operations Facility, or the COF. Visitors can check out the city's fleet of vehicles and equipment and have the chance to talk to staff. There will also be free games and activities, face painting, balloon animals, and food trucks on site. But there will not be fireworks. No fireworks, at least not tonight. There were fireworks allowed in the city this long weekend, and we know what happened. But the thing is that the law has gone the way that it should. Arrests have been made. So why the ban on fireworks sales starting next year? Remind me again what it is we're trying to accomplish with this. I've got some thoughts. I'll share them next, and you're welcome to participate in the conversation. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Will I get in trouble for suggesting to you that what we saw 48 hours ago, well, really about 36 hours ago, what we saw late Monday night in downtown Kitchener paled in comparison to what we have seen in recent times where fireworks were allowed to be used in the city? Would that be fair to say? I've heard words like chaos and mayhem associated with what happened on Monday night in downtown Kitchener. And in no way am I trying to diminish what happened, but I feel as though the previous couple of times when those who decided to recklessly use fireworks were described as hooligans may have been a little bit more mayhem-esque, if you will. Fireworks under strollers, large groups in the Victoria Park having these fireworks shot at them, etc. This was a smaller group that had moved away from the park into parts of the core. But nonetheless, inexcusable behavior with fireworks in our city. And let me share with you some of what the City of Kitchener had to say about the behavior. It was described as a, quote, serious public safety incident involving a small group of reckless youth discharging fireworks in dangerous and unlawful ways in the heart of our community. The city's statement goes on to say, these were unacceptable and dangerous events that occurred by this small group of rowdy young people who displayed little to no regard for their fellow community members and their safety. This incident, the city says, should have never happened. And the city also says across the rest of Kitchener, Victoria Day celebrations were largely peaceful, with citizens celebrating safely and respectfully. This is the kind of city that we know Kitchener to be, and we thank residents for being good neighbors and celebrating appropriately. You may thank them today, Kitchener, but a year from now, you're not going to allow those peaceful citizens celebrating safely and respectfully to do so with the same fireworks they used this weekend, because you are banning their sale starting next year. So too is the city of Waterloo. So too have other jurisdictions. North Dumfries isn't falling for it. I'll remind you that, look, it is reckless, it is unlawful, it is dangerous behavior. This is a small rowdy group of young people engaging in this behavior. But I'll remind you that regional police made not one, not two, but 3 arrests, which is exactly the way it's supposed to work. There are already laws that make illegal this kind of behavior, and police have responded accordingly. Now, I might be so bold as to suggest to you that the consequences of this, yes, a 14-year-old, a 17-year-old, and an 18-year-old have been charged with various offenses. They're not going to spend years or even months or weeks or days in jail. They're going to be issued their fine or whatever comes of this, and that'll be the end of it. Would I love to see some sort of community service as a consequence for this? Yeah, I think that would be a fair consequence. The rest of the city can recognize that this is how the law deals with it. And I don't know, let's start the bidding at 400 hours of community service. Clean up the park on a regular basis. Volunteer in your community. Get more invested and engaged in it. And maybe, just maybe, you will have greater regard for your fellow community members. But the laws are already on the books. You can ban the sale of fireworks in our city starting next year. And in the process, you can make it difficult for small local businesses to do the job of earning some money. You can do that if you want to, but you're not going to change the behaviors. People who wish to get their hands on fireworks will still get their hands on fireworks. And if they want to behave like this, they're going to behave like this. Banning the sale of fireworks will not change rowdy groups of reckless youth. There's a lot more at play to change the behavior of rowdy groups of reckless youth. A fireworks ban, the sale of the fireworks, ain't going to do it, in my humble opinion. Out of curiosity also, because I know that we no longer have public fireworks displays in the city. Why were all those people at Victoria Park? That's a lot of people in the park late on Monday night. I don't know. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. This is the most interactive radio program you're going to find anywhere in this region. Phone lines open the minute we begin the show each and every day. 519-570-2545, star 570 by cell, or 1-800-570-5715, long distance and toll free. Let's go to the phones. Dave is with us this morning. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Mike. I'm a little confused, or a lot confused. Help me out here. Every September, the kids go back to school. Been doing that for decades. And then they turn around and start suspending students in May because they don't have their their certificates up to date, their medical certificates up to date.
Yeah, their vaccination records.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, during the month of May, the school boards are organizing the kids to get together to attend these facilities. And there's a big outbreak of measles going around that are spreading like crazy, like wildfire. And meanwhile, measles have been
eradicated, wiped right out, Dave.
Decades ago.
Yeah, decades ago. I know.
So help me out, Mike.
I can't.
Help me put all this together and make sense of it all. Thank you, and I'll hang up.
All right, Dave. Thank you for the call. I'm going to help you make sense of this. What we need to do is, can I say it? We need to grow a pair here, because what we got to do is just make it clear that thou shalt not pass go, thou shalt not attend the first day of classes until thou hast their vaccination records up to date. It's that's what, David. There's the answer to your question. Wait around till May and again. What are we doing? What are we doing with what we're doing? We ain't doing it the right way. At least not from where I'm sitting. Just when you start school, your vaccination records must be up to date. If they're not, you're not starting school. This is not difficult from where I'm sitting. Maybe I'm missing something. Andre, help me out here.
Good morning, Mike. Well, no, I just know about your hair must be falling out.
I have no hair left to fall out, Andre. That's how concerned I am with what's going on in this region. My hair fell out. I had a full head of hair last week.
Yeah, it's falling out. So I have to say about the firework, Mike. For one, it was done Monday night. My kids were up on their bed looking at it, so it is annoying on a Monday. It should be done before, for one. But you know what?
Monday was the holiday, though, Andre. You can do it.
Exactly.
As long as you don't do it after 11 o'clock. It's okay.
Right, you got to suck it up. But no, they start at 9 this year.
Well, that's okay, as long as they don't go past 11.
Exactly. And then in the middle of the night, I woke up. It was like 2, 3 o'clock. You know what? It lasts for 5 minutes, right? It's illegal. It's not right. But it doesn't mean you have to ban fireworks.
Now you're talking my language, Andre. It doesn't mean you have to ban the sale of fireworks. Remember, Kitchener is celebrating the pop-up shop local. Just don't expect to buy a firework while you're there. You can get other stuff when you want to shop local in Kitchener. An update from the 570 News Center and then Canada Post. It's time for a new business model. Yes? We'll talk about it coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Turn it up!
We are endeavoring to make a connection with Marvin Ryder, who is an associate professor of marketing and entrepreneurship at the DeGroote School of Business and an excellent resource. So I am hoping that we will be able to connect with Associate Professor Ryder and get his perspective on the potential of another strike by Canada Post. I say another because it was about 6 months ago that we were in this very position leading up to the Christmas holiday season, right? And all of the parcels and all of the letters that go out at that time of year, arguably the worst time. How about those businesses that were trying to ship in time for the holidays? Arguably the worst time for us to experience a Canada Post strike, but indeed we did. And now here we are into late May, and the threat exists once again that effective Friday, Canada Post employees could be back on a picket line instead of delivering the mail to our doors. Now, there is a report that has been released that says there need to be foundational changes at Canada Post, including the phasing out of daily door-to-door letter mail delivery for individual addresses while maintaining daily service for businesses. Also, the moratoriums on rural post office closures and community mailbox conversions should also be lifted. What I'm hearing from Canada Post in all of this is an unwillingness to change with the times. It wants more money from the government because its business model is effectively ineffective, right? It's just not working. But rather than adapt and change with the times, it sounds to me as though Canada Post is stubbornly clinging to its old and now antiquated business model. If this was a private company, it would be bankrupt. And instead of saying, there must be something wrong with this business model, because not only are we not making money with this model, we're losing it hand over fist. And so it's like taking out another loan as if somebody would give you that loan for a failing business model. The loan, of course, would come from us as Canadian taxpayers in the form of more subsidy, more funding for what is clearly a failed business model. Canada Post must adapt or die. Isn't that what we say in business? And Canada Post seems unwilling to adapt. How do you view this, in particular, the idea of no longer having door-to-door mail delivery on a daily basis? Who wants to start the bidding at twice a week? 519-570-2545. Star 570 and 1-800-570-5715. I don't think twice a week is too infrequent to get the mail delivered right to your door. Parcel delivery, if we want to enhance that, because, of course, that's where the business seems to be, right? We know we can shop online and have all manner of parcel on our doorstep within 24 hours. You want to try to compete with that model in the parcel delivery business? Okay. But in terms of getting your mail to your door every day, what is it that is so time sensitive that it must be there every 24 hours? I don't think that urgency exists in mail delivery. And further, the idea of community mailboxes, which the previous Trudeau government put the moratorium on, I think we should have more of these community mailboxes. I know they're not ideal for everyone. There can be accessibility concerns, but generally speaking, a single drop-off point in a neighborhood. We've got a big community mailbox right out here in the parking lot at the boardwalk, and I see the various folks from around the various businesses here going to pick up their mail from that mailbox and then taking it back to the store where they work. We can do that in our neighborhoods as well, right? And go to the community mailbox so the postal carrier has one stop to make in the neighborhood as opposed to going from one door to the next door. Let's go to the phones. Doug, good morning.
Morning, Mike. How you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm not too bad. So I'll start. I'm down in Waterloo, and my whole neighborhood, we all have community mailboxes. For me, I'm just driving by. I live on a little sort of courtyard just down off of one of the main streets. The mailbox right at the top of my street. Mail probably comes once, maybe twice a week, sort of depending on the week. Pull in right before we go down the boulevard, right to Crescent. We just stop top of the street and get the mail. It's real easy. It's real effective, and I think it still comes plenty. I know some of my buddies and some of my family friends across the main strip down at Keats Way, they don't have community mailboxes. They have door-to-door. So I don't know why it's different, but I think community mailbox works just as well as door-to-door.
Doug, I appreciate the call. I couldn't agree more. Again, I can understand some accessibility concerns, but generally speaking, I think the community mailbox model works pretty well. And I find it interesting that one of the items on our Farwell Show 5 this morning, some headlines to let you know about as we started the show, is from one of Canada's federal public workers unions saying there's been mistrust developed between management and employees in our federal civil service. One of the things that I think is a legacy of the previous Trudeau government is job creation within government, right? Hundreds of thousands of new federal civil servants, 40% increase over the 9 years that Justin Trudeau was our prime minister. Sure, you would put a moratorium on converting community mailboxes because you wanted to maintain those good-paying union jobs funded as a Crown corporation through federal tax dollars. I would argue that that's part of the legacy of the previous Liberal government here in Canada. So, of course, they would not want to have the community mailboxes and thus preserve the work being done by employees paid for out of the federal coffers. We'll take a break, come back with more of your calls. Surely there is a better business model for Canada Post, and it starts with less frequent door-to-door delivery and more community mailboxes, just for starters, right? This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. What to do with Canada Post? Clearly, a new business model is needed here, and a report looking at the Crown Corporation suggests foundational changes are in order. Agree? Disagree? What would your changes to Canada Post look like? Let's get right back to the phones. Paul, good morning.
Morning. The Canada Post, all of my bills come electronically by email. Nothing comes in my mailbox except flyers. The odd time something comes, a mailed out bank statement or something, but even that's all done online.
So you could live with less days per week delivered to your door?
I could easily live with 1 day a week.
Yeah, I get it. I think most of us would.
I want delivered to my door. That's what I paid for.
You don't want the community mailbox?
I don't want the community mailbox.
Okay.
They just become a nightmare in somebody's front yard, because you can't just, in a residential area that's already built up, you can't just say, okay, we're going to put it here. The parking problems, for one thing, around some of these community mailboxes can be bad, depending on where they're located. But I paid for door delivery. I want it delivered to my door. If it's once a week, that's fine with me, because, like I say, all my, any banking information is all done online. All bills are done online. Everything's automatic payments online. So, like I say, the only thing that I'd miss that I want to see is my Princess Auto flyer every week.
All right, Paul. I like me some Princess Auto too. But again, I think Paul speaks for many of us when he says he could live with fewer weeks of delivery to his door. He doesn't like the community mailbox, but hey, let's just drop it to 1 day per week. Okay. Ibrahim, what about you?
Good morning. Yeah, and the same like Paul said, Mike, most of the things I go to electronically in my email address, and I accept, flyers or occasional letter coming from the bank. I don't know, statement they sent sometime a month or 2 months. So I don't really read. I can't live with even without any, for months or 2 months. It doesn't matter for me, because if I have any concern, I can call the bank or anywhere I can walk. So the other thing is, you say the new model needed. I think they have the guy you have from, you remember Ian Lee, I think his name, from
Ian Lee, yeah, from the Sprott School of Business.
Remember the first time when you had Mike a couple of months ago when we had the same strike, Canada Post, he told you we don't need 55,000 employees.
That's right.
He said restructuring, and he said from 50,000 he put it down to 4,000 or 5,000 only we needed. Mostly he said in rural area only, and business people maybe they need the delivery. So we don't need 55,000. And union making, of course, very well. Union. I was in unionized company. Some ways, sometimes the union also kill job too. So I agree. It's a new model needed. Appreciate it. Okay.
Thanks, Ibrahim. Appreciate the call. Good memory with Ian Lee as well. That's why we were hoping to talk to Marvin Ryder from the DeGroote School of Business today and get his perspective as another post-secondary professor that has an interesting perspective on these things. But yes, Ian Lee did break it down quite clearly before Christmas in how the model could be working more effectively for the modern day. That's what Canada Post needs to do, is modernize. Doug, good morning.
Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Good, thanks. And you?
Not bad. I could live with the 1 day, 2 day mail delivery, and I could live with the community mailbox if it was close enough due to mobility issues. But one thing that I've noticed is they're called mail carriers for one. And it used to be that, we had the red mailboxes, but we also had green ones. So the mailman would walk around, do his routes, and then at strategically located places, they had these green mailboxes that they would open up and get the mail for the next part of the route, and so on. But what I've noticed now is my mail carrier is driving around in a truck. He parks at the top of the street, goes down, comes back, jumps in his truck, and goes to the next place. So are they really called mail carriers anymore?
You think they're just mail drivers?
I think so, yeah.
Doug, I appreciate the call. Again, suggestions as to how we might be able to improve it. Maybe, I don't know. I haven't seen that happen in my neighborhood. I don't know what the idea behind it would have been, but I certainly recall those green or sometimes gray boxes where, yes, the mail carrier could go and strategically reload, if you will, to continue their route through the neighborhood. It's time. Let's just reduce the number of days that mail is being delivered door to door. Let's enhance parcel service so you can compete with the other couriers out there. Let's modernize Canada Post. You can't keep coming hat in hand to the federal government or, by extension, us and saying, geez, we're losing billions of dollars. Can you please give us billions more so we can keep losing it? Not the way this should work. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Our Farwell for Hire 50-50 jackpot is now over $87,000. The take-home prize, more than $43,500. Remember two things. That jackpot gets to $100,000, and I'm getting nervous now that it will, and it will pretty soon. If it does, I'm going to wear the hat of the team that shall not be named. I'm going to do it. I'm going to put it on my head. I'm going to wear it for the full Talkback Hour on the show. The moment that jackpot reaches $100,000, $50,000 take home. If that is enough incentive for you to buy another ticket. You can also buy another ticket before Friday at noon and be eligible for our next early bird prize, $1,000 from TLC Pet Food. $1,000 right in your jeans if you buy your ticket before this Friday, the 23rd at noon. Jackpot right now, more than $87,000. Tickets available at cf5050.ca. Along with that 50-50 jackpot, of course, I go out and hire myself out to various individuals and businesses around the community in exchange for donations to cystic fibrosis research. It's been a busy month. I'm committed to doing at least one job every single day in order to do my part, put in my sweat equity to raise money for cystic fibrosis research. But I will never lie to you. I will always be straight up. And yesterday, I did two quote-unquote jobs, neither of which was very difficult. In fact, the first of them, I got the chance to get together with my friends Paul and Arlene, who I met through this campaign many years ago. They had a niece with cystic fibrosis, so the cause meant quite a bit to them. And the first year that I was called to their place, it was to load up the Malul Blamey truck and get some stuff from Paul and Arlene's place to the thrift store and help them do some purging. No problem. That's the kind of stuff I do. But when I met Paul and Arlene, I found that we had a lot in common, including our passion for the Toronto Maple Leafs, our passion for good butter tarts. Shout out to the bakery in Floridale that provided those butter tarts yesterday when I saw Paul and Arlene. And we also enjoy, Paul and I, the occasional beer. So I was day drinking with Paul yesterday, and Arlene joined us as well, but she drinks coffee or tea. She's nicer, smarter, smoother around the edges than Paul and I. But all we did, I didn't lift a finger. I sat down, had a butter tart, a beer, and tried to solve the Leafs' problems with Paul and Arlene in exchange for a donation. And then last evening, it was off to Wilmot Township and my buddy Rory with his lovely family. And what we got to do, and I loved that this was a thing, The entire neighborhood gets together at the nearby park. They play some soccer. They play some baseball. I might have pulled a groin. I will say that. I might have, trying to snag a ground ball at first base. You can't move that quick when you're old like me. But the whole neighborhood, like dozens of kids at this park just running around, kicking a soccer ball, running around the bases after hitting the baseball. It was so much fun. So not a lot of work, but a lot, several $100s by way of donations yesterday, just out of the kindness of people's hearts. Way to go, Wilmot. And I love you, Paul and Arlene. And one of these years, I'm going to go to Paul and Arlene's place when the Leafs are still playing. That's my plan anyway. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Every Wednesday morning at this time, we check in with the Blacklocks reporter, the only reporter-owned and operated newsroom that covers the nation's capital without politics or punditry. The managing editor there is our good friend Tom Korski, who joins us Wednesday mornings, 10 o'clock. Mr. Korski, good morning, sir.
Morning, Mike.
We were just talking on the show about Canada Post, the mess that it is, the billions that it may need. And you have also covered the story, obviously, and perhaps the future of Canada Post is in the hands of Patty Hajdu, our Labour Minister.
Isn't that something? The trembling hands of Minister Hajdu, forgive me for saying, she has dealt with Canada Post matters in the past as Labour Minister in the first term of the Liberal cabinet, did not do a great job, and that's why we are where we are today. It's real Hobson's choice for Cabinet. They have this report that you've discussed, Mike, to make severe, very deep service cuts. Some question as to whether they can do that under the Act of Parliament that created the Crown Corporation. But either way, it's in particular rural areas that get the stick. And when they tried this last time, there were 50 MPs from all parties that sent petitions up to the House of Commons, and it got pretty hot. The Liberal MP from Labrador, in the day, said it was shameful to talk about country cuts to service at Canada Post. Well, there's a new Liberal MP from Labrador today, and I doubt that he feels any different about service cuts. So this is a real tight spot for Cabinet. And take it away, Patty.
Trembling hands and all. Why are those hands trembling so, Tom?
Patty Hajdu, I'll tell you a short story. In the first time that, as Labour Minister, she dealt with a strike, Patty Hajdu, I know only Conservatives are supposed to do this, but Patty did it. She introduced back-to-work legislation, and she needed some rationale. It was a perfectly legal rotating strike. And Patty came up with a story, and it was about a man I met called Jack. This would bring tears to your eyes, Mike. And it was Jack was homeless because the postal workers did not deliver his disability check, and he was thrown out on the street. There he was in the street in the rain and the cold, and all because of the strike. And Patty said, we have to get this labor dispute settled, and she jammed through back-to-work legislation. Problem, there was no Jack. She made up the entire story, and in fact, Canada Post and their workers, there's one thing they agree on. By long-standing convention, they will process every old age pension, every disability check, every employment insurance check. All benefit checks are handled as usual, even in the midst of any rotating strike. Patty made it up because she needed to, I don't want to use, it's rough language. She made up a story to get out of a jam. And now it's all up to Patty once more. This is going to be great.
Get the popcorn ready.
Honestly.
Tom, can you help me figure out who indeed was the financial agent for Chrystia Freeland's leadership bid?
Records suggest it was a man named Brian O'Neill, and he's an interesting person. In federal filings, he described himself as just a financial planner. There's a lot of those. What he forgot to mention, he's also a cabinet appointee. He's chair of the Business Development Bank. He is a public office holder under the Conflict of Interest Act. He donated to Minister Freeland's leadership campaign, and it appears he was the financial agent for her leadership campaign. That's getting a little close, Mike. There's a long-standing, this is just common sense. It isn't even a convention. If you take a cabinet appointment, you work for all the people, not just some of the people, some of the time. And of all the people that the former Minister of Finance could have hired as her financial agent for her failed Liberal leadership campaign, she picked a cabinet appointee who she had helped make chair of a Crown bank. That's cutting it a little close.
Well, and dare I say, Tom, that Ms. Freeland's silence on this is rather deafening.
Does not want to take questions. We've asked numerous questions, called her on the phone, called the Chair O'Neill, sent emails, you name it. When we did have an email exchange with Chair O'Neill in April over several days, he made no mention of the fact that he was a financial agent, just a plain country boy doing an active citizen who's interested in public affairs, Mike. You know what? We can't have this. Crown appointees work for you, I, everybody, regardless of how you vote or whether you don't vote at all. You pay them. They work for all of us, and sometimes they forget that in this town.
Certainly they do. Speaking of that town, Tom, the Freedom Convoy took over that town some years ago, and still charges, cases, stories continue to trickle out, including the story of a municipal councillor from lovely St. Anne's, Ontario, acquitted of all charges.
All charges, and the majority of charges in the Freedom Convoy were mischief. And you may well ask, why would it take a 3-day trial in Ontario? Well, we asked. A 3-day trial in Ontario Superior Court for Harold Jonker to be acquitted on all charges. He went to the protest. This is a practicing church-going Christian, a father of 13. And what did he say in the day? He said, with some sincerity in his voice, how privileged he felt it was to participate in a peaceful protest on a key issue of mandates, and was recognized by others who felt the same way he did. You know, our takeaway on the Freedom Convoy has always been, Mike, our CMP testified that there was no violence in this demonstration. No one was ever charged with a violent offense. Patrick Morris, OPP superintendent, famously testified he was shocked at how peaceful the protest was. He actually testified the lack of violent crime was shocking, end of quote. That's still a long and far-reaching story, the Freedom Convoy.
I'm glad you could bring to light the acquittal of the municipal councillor from St. Anne's and the rest of Ottawa's business. Tom, as always, keep up the great work. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Mike.
Tom Korski, managing editor of the Blacklocks Reporter, which is the only reporter-owned and operated newsroom that covers the nation's capital with neither politics nor punditry. Tom, I like the fact that they continue to unearth and follow up on stories from sometimes years past. You might have forgotten about those charges that have now led to a full acquittal after a 3-day court hearing. But all these years later, Blacklocks continues to keep up with said stories. I encourage you to check blacklocks.ca at your leisure. You'll find some interesting stuff there, and Tom Korski brings it to our show every Wednesday morning at this time. It's the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. If you were listening closely, you would have heard that last week's provincial budget contained funding that will support the new hospital we are building here in the region of Waterloo. Joining us to talk more about it, Ron Gagnon, who's the president and CEO of the Waterloo Regional Health Network. Ron, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having me.
It's always a pleasure, sir. And along with Ron, we have Cliff Harvey with us as well, who's the VP of Development with the Waterloo Regional Health Network. Cliff, good morning to you.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for having me on.
I'll start with you, Cliff, if I may. It's a $10 million announcement in that budget that will support a planning grant for our new hospital. What does this mean for us moving forward with this project?
It's significant because it shows the support of the government to continue to plan. back in 2022, we received a $5 million planning grant to start the process, and we're now ready to submit what is called the functional program. Basically, it outlines the programs that we're going to have in the new hospital, and the $10 million is showing their support for us continuing to plan for the hospital.
Ron, we know that as a community, we are planning to be 1 million ready. It's language that we're hearing more and more about. 1 million residents will call the region home in the next 25 to 30 years. How does this new hospital fit that 1 million ready plan?
Yeah, great question, Mike. We think it's a key part of being 1 million ready. We actually have a comprehensive capital plan for the next 20 years, and the new hospital is a key piece of that plan. The other two key components are the redevelopment and expansion of our Chicopee site, formerly known as the Freeport site. So we will expand beds there as well, and a repurposing of our current Midtown site, or what people would have known it as the KW site, into urgent care, acute ambulatory care types of services. So the entire community will receive all of those services. The other thing we know is we already serve about 10% of the province because of our regional programs. So we're already serving about 1.4 million, and our total population served is going to grow to over 2 million at the same time that this region is growing to 1 million.
Cliff, we know that you can't build a hospital overnight, but there is a great deal of anticipation for this new acute care facility in the region. How does the planning grant move us forward and keep us on track to get this hospital built?
Again, I'll just repeat that it shows the government's support for us planning for the new facility, and we're in active conversations with the ministry, and we have the support of Infrastructure Ontario to help us in that planning. So basically what it does is it keeps us on track to make the submissions forthcoming, and then get into construction as soon as possible. And I think one of the things I'll say is that the hospital has been very strategic in approaching the government around this project. Originally, when Ron spoke about the 3 different sites, the original proposal was to put a 2.6 million square foot facility. We know today that's too big to build by one contractor, and the market is very highly under demand for hospitals. So the hospital is actually strategically broken it into phasing so that it's easier and more competitive to build. And this is very attractive to the government at this point. So this is one way that we're basically meeting the needs of the government for the infrastructure, at the same time making sure that we're delivering the project as quickly as possible to the community.
Ron, can you share with us, because this is obviously encouraging news, as Cliff has so eloquently pointed out, that the conversations are open with the provincial government. We're obviously on the radar, so to speak. But to get to this point in the community, can you share with us kind of some of the background that brought us here, that gets us ready, that gets us to this next step forward in the building of this new hospital?
Yeah, happy to do it, Mike, and I'll try and give you the abridged version. So, and if I were to start at the very beginning, there was actually a key group of community and business leaders that came together, I would say late 2017, because I joined in 2018. And they came together to insist on the need for a new, modern, comprehensive hospital in this region because of the needs of the community and of the business community. So I will tell you, probably the first thing I heard about as I was joining the community in 2018. And then that group has continued to be front and center in helping to move the project forward. We've also had great leadership from all of the municipalities in the region, both at the staff level and at the political level, that have helped to move this along. We've enjoyed great support from our MPPs locally, and I would specifically call out Minister Harris, who has been a constant champion for our project and helping it to move forward. And, great support from our various partners in the health system, great support from the St. Joe's Health System as well, who has been a great partner throughout this journey. and has helped to actually move the two hospitals closer together to actually become the Waterloo Regional Health Network. And I would say great support at the political level as well. So when I think back to our announcement of the site, to see the Premier here, the Minister of Health, and Minister Harris, and a couple other ministers, that was a great signal of how important this project is to the provincial government. And I think the last thing I would say is our internal teams, and that's staff, physicians, volunteers, clearly expressing the need for this important project and the need to do it as one.
Cliff, I have little doubt that these community champions that Ron refers to and the support that's been received in the community will continue to be called upon as we move forward, because the province can fund the construction of the building of this hospital, but we're going to have to fill it with equipment and staff, and the community will play a role in that.
Absolutely. We've had great support from all our partners, municipal, regional as well, and the community, as well as our health partners as well. And we are continuing to seek their support, and they're offering it to us. There's a great amount of anticipation for the hospital. So what we need to do is make sure that we can deliver that to them. We don't want to break the energy that we've received to date, and the planning grant is just giving us another boost.
Gentlemen, I thank you both for your time on the show this morning. Keep up the good work, and thank you very much for being here.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate
appreciate
you and appreciate your time.
Ron Gagnon and Cliff Harvey joining us on the show this morning. Ron is the president and CEO of the Waterloo Regional Health Network. We call it REN now. And Cliff Harvey, the VP of Development at REN. A $10 million planning grant on top of the $5 million that was provided earlier, but the latest $10 million comes in the latest provincial budget about a week ago. Very much still on the radar are we here in the region in moving forward that project to get a new acute care hospital built in about a decade's time. I've heard from people smarter than I that there is confidence that we can achieve that goal in the next decade to have that hospital built out by the University of Waterloo. Now, this is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. A quick message to the 90,000 or so users of that other telecom in Canada, the big blue one. 90,000 people across the country experiencing issues with their service from that other telecom this morning. Take it as a bit of a holiday. Isn't it weird how lost we feel without that connectivity to the 4x3 screen that fits into our pocket? Take it as the break that somebody is intending for you to have, okay? You don't need to be fully wired, at least for today. Bell Canada says it's working on the outage and hopes to have service restored as soon as possible. It is primarily affecting customers in Ontario and Quebec. Don't worry. You can live without your phone for a little bit. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. In just over 1 month, we are going to be walking to End ALS. We'll do it in a beautiful location on the grounds of the University of Waterloo. The annual Walk to End ALS coming up on Sunday, June the 22nd. And joining us to talk more about it this morning, Sheila Dorsch, who's the community lead with the ALS Society of Canada. Sheila, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having me again.
It's great to have you again. Always appreciate your time. And along with Sheila this morning, we're joined by Ada Hernandez Rodriguez, whose husband Daniel was diagnosed with ALS just a couple of years ago. Ada, good morning to you as well.
Good morning, Mike. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, I really appreciate you making the time, Ada, so that we can understand a little bit better how ALS impacts the life of a family. Can we start there? How is it that ALS has impacted your life and that of your husband, Daniel?
Oh, my God. Today, sometimes I'm the legs or the arms of my husband, but today I will be his voice. So how has ALS impacted our life? nearly 2 years ago, my husband was diagnosed with ALS, as you mentioned. And it was a moment that forever changed the course of our lives. ALS has been incredibly difficult to cope with. ALS is an unforgiving and relentless disease. It's a progressive motor neuron disease that has impacted our family, leading to emotional and financial challenges. ALS caused profound grief and fear, not only for my husband as a person living with it, but also for me as a caregiver. We had to adapt not only our home activities and routines, we had to adapt everything to accommodate my husband's needs.
Ada, what would your message be to our community as they look to maybe support you or ALS Canada?
When ALS entered our lives, we learned that we must live right now. We must live with who we are right now. We must pay attention to what is happening right now, because that's all we really have. When you live in the present, you see opportunity and take hold of it. Today, ALS is in my life, in my family's life, but tomorrow it can be in yours or someone you love. That's why not every day is good for us, but there is something good in the everyday, and this can be your support. Thank you for the opportunity to let people know that their donation will help us find a cure and bring hope to many families like mine. So I want to share, please donate today and you will make a difference.
Sheila, I mentioned at the outset that the walk is just over a month away now on Sunday, the 22nd of June at the University of Waterloo. Can you let us know a little bit more and ways that we can get involved in the walk to end ALS?
Sure, yeah. So you're right. We're so excited to be hosting at the brand new outdoor gathering space that is just in front of the Student Life Center, parking lot L, just off of Columbia. It's all a free event. The registration opens at 10. The walk will start at 10:30. There'll be music, snacks, bottled drinks, face painting, tattoos, and then also on top of that, speeches from elected officials, along with our own Dr. David Taylor, who is the Chief Scientific Officer Research and Strategic Partnership. The walk will be a loop around Ring Road for a shorter distance and then twice around to meet our 5-kilometer goal. And I really don't want to forget, Mike, to thank you once again for spending the morning with us as our MC for the day. Furthermore, I just want to also let you know that when you register and fundraise and participate in the walk this year for Waterloo Region, you're taking meaningful action, as Ada mentioned in her response with Daniel, that what we're working toward a world free of ALS. And it's worth noting, and I usually say this with you, Mike, but that anyone can develop ALS, regardless of gender, socioeconomic status, geography, or race, even though it affects people in between the 40 and 60-year age range. We are seeing a lot of younger folks who are being diagnosed, and by supporting the ALS Society of Canada, there really is no better reason than to what Ada and Daniel mentioned in the response, that today ALS is in our lives, but tomorrow it can be in yours. And you can please join us. You can follow our webpage, www.walktoendals.ca, and it would be so exciting to see anybody willing to kind of come and walk and also to support such an important cause.
I'm on that website right now, Sheila, walktoendals.ca. See that almost $750,000 has been raised so far on the way to a goal of $2 million. What do the funds raised help ALS Canada do?
Well, as Ada was saying, with the community, knowing that there's over 65 people just in Kitchener alone living with ALS Canada, the community services in terms of our equipment loan program that helps to offset the prices of the expense in terms of trying to live at home with this disease. And then on top of that, we have our advocacy, our research team, our relentless fund development team that are working towards signature events to help raise awareness and, again, creating this world free of ALS.
Ada, can you share with us how ALS Canada has supported you and your family?
Absolutely. ALS treatment is very, very expensive. The medication, the equipment, the therapy. However, ALS Canada has helped us at every step of the disease, having access to equipment that is essential for my husband's safety and functioning as a person living with it. They have also provide us information, resources, and education about this illness. They have been always there for us, trying to help us. So I would like to take 1 second to thank you, ALS Canada, for being a shoulder to cry on and helpful when things got stressful.
Ada, I really appreciate that. It's really helpful to hear such a close and personal story. So thank you for being here this morning. And Sheila, thank you as well. And I hope I see you both on June 22nd.
Absolutely.
Good.
Please.
Yes, for sure. Thanks so much, Mike. Thank you so much for your kind words, Ada.
No, thank you. Thank you for everything. See you there.
We will see you there. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Sheila Dorsch with ALS Canada. Sheila is the community lead with the ALS Society of Canada, and Ada Hernandez Rodriguez is the spouse of Daniel Hernandez, who was diagnosed just 2 years ago with ALS. The Walk to End ALS comes up at the University of Waterloo on June the 22nd. It's a Sunday. It's a beautiful route to walk. And if you'd like to learn more, you can just visit walktoendals.ca. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. You will have to forgive me if I'm a little bit nervous in this next segment, because the guy who is after my job is in studio with me. I've had this guy in the broadcast booth with me at Kitchener Rangers games, and well, let's just say he's really good at this, and it makes me nervous because now he's here in my studio, and I know he wants to take my job someday, but that's okay. I'm going to let him have it. Anthony Tamming is in studio with us. Anthony, it's really good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning to you, Mike Farwell.
How are things going?
Really good, really good.
Yeah? Last time you and I got a chance to talk, we were in the broadcast booth at the Kitchener Rangers game.
Yeah.
And you came on the air and you talked about your own podcast.
Yeah, I do. Actually, really fun, actually. Actually, I just started my own podcast. We call it, What Inspires You with Dr. Doom.
What inspires you?
Yeah.
Very
that's new.
good. Very good. What inspires you, Anthony?
What inspires me is just be myself and creative content of my broadcast. What is inspired with Dr. Doom, but yeah.
Way to go. Way to go. Laurie Maloney is with us as well. A good support for Anthony. And I see you annually. In fact, the Upside Down Golf Tournament's not too far away. We're going to do that in
June
mid-June.
16th.
You got it right off the top of your head.
Can't wait.
What we're here to talk about today is the Fierce and Fit Boxing Charity Gala for Champions with special needs coming up in September. Laurie, how important are these events to our community with special needs?
They are so incredibly important for a couple of reasons. One is it raises funds. There are many, many people who benefit from Fierce and Fit Boxing. They do in person, they do online. They most recently had Michael Nicholson actually fighting in the ring, which was just a fantastic experience for him. and the overall community.
And I'm sure that you, as a parent, as a supporter of this community, can see the impact that it has on these special needs athletes.
The self-esteem, the courage, the bravery, the camaraderie, the community that is built in Fierce and Fit Boxing is absolutely out of this world.
So is it what it sounds like? This is just like it's a boxing opportunity for people with special needs.
That's right. Yep. They get together twice in person, or two times a week in person on Wednesdays and on Fridays, and then also online. There's one boxer who's gone on to fight in world championships. You interviewed him, right, Anthony? Or
yeah, like I did with Sid and Tivna and the group of the Fierce and Fit Boxing. Yeah, really good.
How do you like Fierce and Fit Boxing?
Really fun and meet new friends and hang out, and those guys are real legit guys. I know.
They are legit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're making new friends. You get the chance to hang out. Why did you try Fierce and Fit Boxing?
Oh, I should get poem like Farwell. But I texted actually a long time ago when I met Tivna and Coom on YouTube channel, and I said, I love your boxing, and I want to try it someday, and give him a minute to upload on YouTube, like Tivna is like I'm so happy what I'm doing, and come down to boxing on myself. I take Uber to Fierce and Fit Boxing myself.
Come on. So you do this whole thing on your own. You hop in the Uber, you get to Fierce and Fit Boxing all by yourself.
Yeah, I did. One by one, like, yeah.
I wish Tavina could have been here today, but we just failed to connect, and that's okay. Do you get scared, Anthony, when you're boxing?
No. I focus on my fear, but yeah.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Lori, how can folks support the work that Fierce and Fit Boxing does?
Come on out to the gala. Absolutely. If you're not able to come out to the gala, if you can donate either money or a prize or something like that would be just incredible.
Yeah, and these, like, I mean, I can't imagine the independence that Anthony is showing.
Well, and Tavina and her gang, like, not only the independence, but she promotes leadership. Like, Anthony's a coach. There's many coaches now who also have a developmental disability. And the community, like, they go on trips to different places together, and the looks on their faces, if you ever come out to see, I get to go and watch once in a while when I happen to be with Anthony, and the people are so happy and inspired and empowered, and that feeling goes outside of the boxing ring, and that's what's really incredible about what Tavina's doing.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. It's a great story all around. FierceandFitBoxing.com is the website you can check out. That's Fierce, then the letter N, Fit Boxing. FierceandFitBoxing.com. Find out more about the charity gala for champions with special needs. And Anthony, I'm going to see you at the Upside Down Golf Tournament next month, I hope.
I am, absolutely, yep.
Good. And maybe you can help me out MC that night, because you're getting good at this.
That's my goal with you.
All right. Sounds great. Anthony Tamming, one of the coaches and special needs athletes with Fierce and Fit Boxing, and Lori Maloney, who is support to the entire community. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. We'll see you on the 16th.
I look forward to it. Thanks, Anthony.
Thank you.
This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I was talking earlier about my Farwell for Hire jobs, and I use jobs in air quotes because I did no heavy lifting yesterday. I did not sweat. I mostly just visited, and in the evening got the chance to hang out with a bunch of great kids in the neighborhood, and some of the parents too, in Mannheim, as they get use of a field, a park nearby with a soccer field, a baseball diamond. It was great fun. On my way to Mannheim, though, I had the distinct, shall I say, displeasure of trying to make a left-hand turn from the expressway off-ramp onto Trussler Road. You know the one? If you're making any left-hand turn, either onto or off of the expressway, either direction, when you get off at Trussler Road coming east or westbound, you know that making the left-hand turn, heck, if you're making the left on Trussler Road to get onto the highway, it ain't a pretty picture, especially at rush hour. I decided, because we've talked about this before, how dangerous that particular area is, and some of you more grizzled veterans will do what I think is the safest choice, and that is, if you're going westbound, get off the highway and go right, and then take the nearest roundabout and come back and use that to turn you around. You don't have to make a left through all that traffic on Trussler Road. But I was kind of new at this. I wasn't thinking. Next thing I knew, I was sitting there at the end of the expressway off-ramp, waiting to make my left onto Trussler during rush hour last evening. And not easy, not fun, pretty darn dangerous. Reminder, because we have talked about how dangerous this is, there is a plan, hopefully this summer, to have a temporary traffic signal put in place there to help alleviate some of that danger. Don't even get me started on what it takes, municipal, regional, provincial, it's so much red tape. Just put up a ding-dang traffic signal. But we're going to put up a ding-dang traffic signal later this summer. It'll be a temporary one until road work happens on Trussler, and then when the road reconstruction happens, it will become permanent. But finally, a little bit of relief for drivers in the Expressway and Trussler Road area, a temporary traffic signal coming to Trussler Road later this summer. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio.
The Whiz Kids had won it, Bobby Thompson had done it, and Yogi read the comics all the while. Rock and roll was being born, marijuana we would scorn. So down on the corner the national pastime went on trial. We're talking baseball, Klazuski, Campanella, talking baseball. The man and Bobby Fella, the Scooter, the Barber and the Nuke. They knew them all from Boston to Dubuque, especially Willie, Mickey and the Duke.
Who doesn't love talking a little baseball, especially on a cold fall morning like today? Just good time to remind you, we got a lid at the Rogers Center. You don't have to deal with the elements. What's with this weather, Ian Hunter?
Yeah, it is a beautiful fall day today, isn't it? Fantastic.
Yeah, really loving it, really loving it. Ian Hunter is the Blue Jay Hunter. He joins us every Wednesday morning, 11 o'clock, to talk some Blue Jays baseball, and you are welcome to talk baseball with us. Phone lines always open at 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. The Blue Jays picked the perfect time to get a terrific outing from Chris Bassett. All the offense they needed. You don't need much when you're getting your first shutout of the season. Mm-hmm. But I say it was the perfect time, Ian, because that other team is done playing. We talked about this last week, so all eyes in Toronto now on the Blue Jays.
Yeah, it's definitely a big series for this team. The San Diego Padres come into town. They're one of the strongest teams in the National League. Jays just had they won 1 of 3 against the Tigers. Tigers are the best team in baseball over the weekend. I thought they would have been lucky to get 1 of 3, which they did. But all of those games were one-run games. So, yeah, the fact that they hung in there tough, took a while for them to get their first shot. I was surprised at that they've had their first shutout of the season. And Chris Bassett was fantastic. So Anthony Santander's bat came alive. It was just how we all expected it to be, right?
I was trying to remember if it was San Francisco or San Diego. I think it was San Diego that Bo Bichette got in a little bit of trouble with last year, talking about what a good market it would be to
San
play
Francisco.
in. San Fran? Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And, funny enough, we fast forward to another year and he's potentially walking out the door. So we'll see what happens. But I mean, I still never really took anything from that. I always thought it was kind of a bit of a leading question, but that's the nature of the business, right? Like that's what the Maple Leafs are going to have to deal with Mitch Marner as well, too, right? Like pending free agents. These are things that come up, and players are going to be asked questions of where do you want to play or what do you think about the future? So, yeah, it's tight for them to navigate it sometimes.
Great reference on the Mitch Marner pending free agent situation for Toronto sports teams. You got to love Toronto sports. I did want to talk to you a little bit about, I know it's not Blue Jays specific, but you just mentioned that series with the Tigers, which I was also quite impressed with, simply because the Tigers are so darn good. I have fond memories of that old division that featured the Jays and the Tigers and all of those old matchups. But what is it that makes the Tigers the best team in baseball this season?
They're just lineup top to bottom. They're so well balanced. They have, I think, a top 3 starting pitching staff and a top 3 bullpen. So last year, I kind of thought after they sold at the trade deadline, they sold off a ton of their assets, and everyone thought, okay, well, they're just going to be a bottom feeding team, but they caught fire, almost kind of like what happened to the Baltimore Orioles a few years ago. They have a ton of young talent, and it just felt like at some point they're going to catch fire. And yeah, they're a really strong team, and the Jays hung in there tough in that series. I mean, that could have been a series sweep for Toronto. It could have been a series sweep for the Tigers. That's just how closely those games were played. So it was a lot of really good baseball, I would say, over the weekend, and a good start to the series last night against the Padres.
Absolutely. Okay. I know Lisa loves her Blue Jays baseball, and she's on the phone with us this morning. Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning, Mike. Good morning, Ian. How are you?
Good, Lisa. How are you?
I'm okay. What Stanley Cup? There's no Stanley Cup playoffs anymore. That's over.
What Stanley Cup playoffs? Yeah.
I have a question for you, and it's not to do with a game, but they had over Mother's Day, they had a little bit of a clip where they had a bunch of the Blue Jays players talking about their moms, and I found it was very interesting that Alek Manoah, one of the guys I'm cheering to come back, was included in that. Have you heard anything about a potential return for him?
Yeah, so he's still rehabbing from his, they didn't call it Tommy John, but a very similar surgery to that. So, he's rehabbing. It sounds like the earliest we may see him is August. Okay. But yeah, there hasn't been any concrete. Typically, when they're getting closer, they'll say, oh, they're going on a minor league rehab stint. So they would get maybe 3 to 4 games in the minor leagues before they come back. We're not quite there yet with Manoah, but I think we may get more of a concrete idea closer to the All-Star break about if we see him at the end of the season.
Okay. No, I thought that was interesting that he was included in that, and really haven't heard anything about him since the off season. So.
Yeah, and I think like you, Lisa, I'm sure there's a lot of fans that are rooting for the guy. Like we saw the potential in him finishing top 3 Cy Young a few years ago. And, you know, the Chris Bassett is free agent at the end of this year, so the Blue Jays certainly need starting pitching next season. And
they need some pitching, yeah.
So I think it would just be an incredible story. I don't know if Manoah will return to form as one of the best pitchers in the AL, but even just having a serviceable guy out there is really going to help this team.
Yeah, for sure. He's still a young guy. I really, and he was so likable too.
Yeah.
I mean, the way he stood up for Kirk when people were kind of giving him a rash, and I'm hoping that he'll be able to come back and have some good starts again.
Yeah, for sure. I think it might be a similar scenario where a couple years ago, Hyunjin Ryu went down with a similar injury, and he came back at the end of the season and really had some really strong starts for the Jays and helped push them at the end of the season. So maybe we see something similar with Manoah at the end of the year.
Okay. Good to know.
All right. Thanks for calling, Lisa.
Take care.
Good to hear from you, Lisa. As always, Mark is on the line as well. And I've got a question that relates to the Mitch Marner-Bo Bichette comparison. Like, is this just Toronto sports? Now, we'll continue with Ian Hunter, the Blue Jay Hunter. There's a phone line open for you if you want to be a part of Blue Jay Hunter as we talk Blue Jays baseball here on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Is it just Toronto? Is that what we're dealing with here? Ian Hunter is the Blue Jay Hunter. He joins us every Wednesday morning at 11 to talk some Blue Jays baseball. I'll get back to this Toronto sports theory in a moment, but Mark is on the phone with us this morning. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning. Hi, Ian. Just a thought, Ian. What would you think about moving Hoffman to starting pitcher? And when Manoah comes back, he could be a closer.
You know what? That's not the craziest idea. I mean, I believe when Jeff Hoffman was in free agency, they had a potential deal with the Braves, I believe, that they had explored him starting later in the deal, but that deal got nixed. So, there's a potential for that to happen, but I just, with Manoah, maybe we see him kind of come into games, maybe 1 or 2 innings here or there. Like maybe they don't stretch him out as a full starter to start the season. I think he has the stuff to be a reliever for sure.
Yeah, I'd like to kind of see that, Ian. Just change things up a little bit and give it a chance.
Yeah, and I mean, for the Jays, I think what you want to do with starting pitchers is you want to exhaust all possible options. Like putting him in the bullpen, I think would be a last resort. So I don't think they're quite there yet, but I feel like with his fastball and his repertoire, he could be a successful reliever, but I think you still want to kind of squeeze that orange a little bit more to see if there's any more juice left as a starting pitcher.
Okay, thanks, Ian.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Always good to hear from you. A lot of Alek Manoah love.
Yeah.
And I can't help but think, Ian, that's one of the reasons that Alek Manoah was included in that Mother's Day video that Lisa mentioned earlier. Fans still can relate. He was very likable. And why not add him to your promotional material?
Yeah, absolutely. He still could be a fixture in the starting rotation. Maybe not this year, but I think certainly wiping the slate clean next year, he should be in the running for a starting rotation spot for sure.
Speaking of pitching, just before we move on to the Toronto sports theory, but I came across, I'm not even going to try his last name, but he's Trey. High A ball, 10 strikeouts in his debut, moving up the pitching ranks and the ladder here for the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, absolutely. A young guy, he kind of had a bit of a rough start to the season, but as of now, he's striking out basically everybody in the minor leagues. So he's another one who maybe we kind of keep an eye on, especially with young pitchers. They tend to rocket up the system pretty quickly. So I think there's an outside chance that maybe we see him called up to the big leagues this year. I think that would be a big leap going all the way from single A to the majors, but it has happened before. So if there is a need in the bullpen or the starting rotation, maybe we see him.
Yeah, and when you're putting up numbers like that, hey, let's try your stuff at the major league level. Right?
What do you got to lose at that point?
Exactly. All right, so you got me thinking about it when you made the comparison to Mitch Marner before when we were talking about Bo Bichette, right? Pending free agent. The Leafs did try to move Marner this year, and Marner used his no movement clause to nix that. So the Leafs they put the potential of losing a player for absolutely nothing come July the 1st. Blue Jays face the same with Bo Bichette. But the other part of it that you made me think of, Ian, is we've got these exciting cores with both of these teams. The Leafs, Matthews, Marner, etc. The Blue Jays, Vladdy, Bo, etc. They can make the playoffs. They just can't win in the playoffs. Is this the life of a Toronto sports fan now?
It's starting to feel like that, isn't it? There are so many parallels when you look between these two teams. The franchise players, the front office, the lack of success in the postseason, like in the regular season, especially with the Jays. Last year notwithstanding, they've been pretty consistent, I would say, over the last 5 years. But when the time comes to the playoffs, they still haven't won a playoff series or a playoff game in this new regime of the Blue Jays. So, yeah, I feel bad for the fans because you have all this talent here, and on paper, you feel like it's not when they win a World Series or a Stanley Cup, it's how many. And we just haven't reached that point yet here with Toronto. So it's going to happen sooner or later. I know we were talking about at the break about when is Toronto going to win a championship. They will again at some point. But yeah, it felt like for the Jays and for the Leafs too, these are opportunities missed. They had all the talent in the world, and they looked like such a good team, and the window of opportunity was there, but they just haven't been able to capitalize. And I think we're feeling that with the Leafs Nation and kind of with the Blue Jays fan base right now as well.
The most recent major championship in Toronto was, of course, the Raptors, and they feel like they're 100 miles away from another one, too.
Yeah.
So tough times. But on the note of the Blue Jays, you mentioned Santander's bat starting to heat up just a little bit, and just like has been the case for the last couple of weeks, Ian, you would love to see more. The Jays are one game below 500 as we discussed this today, but they're just kind of hanging around. You don't win a pennant in April or May. You can lose it. The Jays at least are not losing the pennant right now. They're hanging around.
Yeah, they're 5 games back of the Yankees for the division lead and 2.5 out of a wild card spot. So I think getting and staying above 500 is like the most immediate goal for this team. It seems like they keep flip-flopping back and forth, but nobody, as we said in previous weeks, nobody's running away with this division. Teams aren't peeling away like they are in the National League. So they really need to get on a run here. And the Jays have faced no excuses for them. They faced a lot of tough teams, like Padres, one of the best teams in baseball. The Tigers last weekend, best team in baseball. They were on the road against Seattle, played really well against that team. So coming up, they have a few more favorable series. They're facing the Rays in a little bit. A lot of teams scuttling around 500. So these are some winnable series coming up in the next couple of weeks.
Jays continue that series versus the Padres tonight. You'll hear the game on 570 News Radio, and you will hear Ian Hunter, our Blue Jay Hunter, every Wednesday morning at 11 here on the show. Thanks for being here, buddy.
You're welcome. Thank you.
It's the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Okay, so I'll admit it. I did it. That conversation with Ian Hunter, the Blue Jay Hunter, who joins us every Wednesday morning at 11 to talk Blue Jays baseball. And we talked about the parallels between the Blue Jays and the Toronto Maple Leafs. A young, exciting core, one that fans expect the team will build around, leading us to the ultimate goal of a championship. Very similar. Vladdy and Bo and George and the supporting cast, and then Marners and Matthews and Tavares and Riley and oh boy. So I let myself, though, go down that road. I'm thinking, like, it's got to happen. All this talk about, it's such a pressure cooker playing in Toronto, the media is this, the media is that. Pressure is a privilege. I think the players should relish it. What I do think happens, though, because the media is just as hungry. Listen, deep down, they're almost certainly fans of the team in the city that they're covering. They want it as badly as the players want it, as the rest of the fans want it. So I think what happens is everything gets exaggerated, right? The downswings and or the losses are the worst losses, and the upswings and the wins are the best ever wins. And we don't do a very good job of keeping an even keel. But after talking with Ian about the parallels between the Jays and the Leafs, I started thinking again, surely to goodness, like I'm on the back nine here, and I've never even seen my favorite hockey team, my favorite NHL hockey team, in the Stanley Cup final. They've never even made it to the final, much less threatened to win it. What if it doesn't? It's got to happen. It will someday. It's got to someday. And I just think about what that day will be like. Could you imagine watching a Leafs Stanley Cup finals game, an elimination game, when the Leafs are winning the game 5-1 in the third period on the cusp of winning a Stanley Cup? I don't even know. My head might actually explode. But it's got to happen, right? The law of averages states it's got to happen. I'm going to send you to the 570 News Center for an update from some sensible people. And then we'll come back with another sensible person. Rob Deutschman joins us for Political R&D next. We're going to talk about speed cameras, Rob and I, and you too, on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
stand. Sometimes you turn your back to the wind. There's a world outside the darkened door where blues won't haunt you anymore. With a brave heart, free and lover's soul, come ride with me to the distant shore. We won't hesitate, break down the garden gate. There's not much time left today.
What a perfect song. An absolutely perfect song to start Political R&D this Wednesday morning. We do it every Wednesday at 11:30 with R&D himself, Rob Deutschman. Life is a highway where we should have photo radar so we can catch the maniacs driving 180 kilometers an hour. But the people driving 42 on a city street, come on with your coming on. Rob Deutschman is with us on the phone. Good morning, Rob.
I guess one of the benefits of having your own radio show is the ability to shape the message.
I started by shaping mine, yes. I will also start with this. Ontario Premier Doug Ford suggested that some, not all, but some municipalities are using speed cameras as, quote, revenue tools. That's what the Premier said. You and I talked about it. That's why we wanted to talk about speed cameras today. I have now set the table for you, good sir.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So, you're noticed as the voice of reason. So, I mean, how can I argue with what you have to say, right?
That's an excellent point. You want to just move on and talk about something else? How about the Leafs?
Yeah, no, we're not doing that. You've done that enough ad nauseum. So, I appreciate Doug Ford. He won an election. I ran as a Liberal. So I'm not going to say a whole lot to be critical of him, because anything I say that's critical of him obviously is going to be tainted by the fact that I ran against him. But I will say it's too early to make statements like that in the whole genesis and process here. And remember, this is political R&D. This is not debate R&D, or it's not political debate as between you and I. This is about providing some background information for people to better understand how we are where we're at. So I think that's what I'll focus on right now. And maybe our Premier could focus on that sort of thing, too.
Whoa, there's drive-by.
Listen, speed cameras are an interesting thing, because anyone who's run an election or gone to a town hall or, probably engaged with someone at their front door, oftentimes, except on Melrose Place, oftentimes the issue is going to be speeding in the neighborhood. And when you're just elected as a municipal politician, it's surprising how often that issue comes up. So now we're at council, and all of a sudden there's a report that talks about speed cameras. And, I have to admit, when I got elected in 2022, that issue had come up, but I wasn't really deeply aware that regional council had already started a process with respect to speed cameras in the community. And at the time when the report came to us, regional council had about, I think it was, maybe 14 of them, sort of like 2 in every, because, we have to be fair in all municipalities. I think we had 2 per municipality. So maybe it was about 14 in the community. And we had this report in front of us that was talking about adding about 8 more. And a number of us looked at it and said, well, why are we moving at such a slow pace? This is like one of the most significant issues that we hear about. And this seems to be a great opportunity to try to, be effectively deal with this issue of speeding, because the cities like Kitchener and Waterloo have their annual programs where they go to a few streets and add some changes to the roadway to force vehicles to slow down. You'll see sometimes those I don't know what you call them, sticking up in the middle of the road.
Yep.
You don't want to hit. So as you slow down. So we're looking at this going, okay, well, why are we moving so slow on this? We should be moving faster on this. And the whole point of it is, it comes from the idea that we need to slow cars down because speeding is a concern of our community. That's the genesis, and that's the basis for it. So now you start to, and I can tell you, I delved deeper into this at the time and met with some of the staff to find out. And what was curious to me was, Mike, at one point, we had, I think it was, let's say 14 in the community, but there were only 2 active speed cameras at any one time. And so what we were doing was the camera would be set up and there would be a USB stick in there. It would operate for the day. Somebody would go, pull out the stick, send it to Toronto, put in a new stick.
And then the Toronto would take this stick, review the information, and they were processing our speeding tickets under the speed program. So that just seemed, it seemed a little archaic in terms of the approach, but that was the approach. Then we said, well, how can we do this quicker? And so at that time, we're sharing services with the City of Toronto had set up to be able to process these tickets, and other municipalities were sort of buying time or space or processing time with the City of Toronto. So then we were sort of restricted by that. So out of that then came council gave direction to staff to increase the number of cameras to speed up the program, the implementation program. And council and staff came back with this report. This is the one where you're eating your shoe on the 175.
No, I'm not.
All over the place. Well, you proposed it.
Yes, I did propose to eat my shoe.
Just like you're proposing to wear a hat on 100,000, but you should have went to 150. But anyway, that's another conversation. But so we were a little surprised by how fast they were, but we were like, okay, well, if you think you can do this, and staff is very professional about this, and we have a very competent staff. We're fortunate to have that at all our municipalities, but especially at the region. And so they came back and said, well, this is what we're proposing. We're like, okay, well, if you think you can do this, but that was a bit of a sudden thing for many of us in terms of the number that they were proposing. But in order to do that, then that meant we had to set up our own operation to process. And this is where it gets a little bit different than you've cited the Wellington example, right, where they use an outside service, a third-party service provider, to process all of these tickets that come up. So the issue then is, okay, people are speeding. We already have red light cameras in place in the region, and they seem to generate revenue all the time, unfortunately. And I'm not clear where the funds go from the red light camera ticketing that we do. That's where people, on a yellow into a red enter into an intersection. But on these, it was clear on the speed cameras, the goal was to use the funds to build out the ability to process tickets and even be able to offer services to other municipalities once we were built out. And that any additional funds that were generated through the ticketing process would be used for speeding, reduction of speed initiatives in the community. And that's really the premise for this.
So I hear where you're coming from, and it's a great explanation as to kind of how we got to where we are.
Right.
But here's the thing, Rob. This is based on a completely false premise. Completely false.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you what that false premise is, and then I'll let you answer. You can have the rest of the time right after this break, okay? So hang in there.
I'm very excited.
All right. No, you're not, but I appreciate you saying so. Rob Deutschman, Political R&D, joins us every Wednesday morning to have a conversation. We learn how the sausage is made, and now I'll tell you why the pan that the sausage is in is not the right pan. Stay with us on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Every Wednesday morning, 11:30, Rob Deutschman joins us for something we call Political R&D. Rob has extensive political experience, the former mayor of North Dumfries, a former regional councillor. He ran provincially in the last provincial election, and we get some great insight into the inner workings of government. So, Rob, here's what I would suggest to you as to why I believe, because it's a great explanation of where we're at with speed cameras, how we got here. And I believe sincerely, I get it. The number one complaint you'd hear from residents when you're going door-to-door campaigning is people drive too fast in my neighborhood. Right. So I'm going to say this, what I believe to be the false premise here, and I'm going to say it at risk of even getting in trouble at home, because I love my beloved dearly. And
she's the true voice of reason.
She
Go ahead.
Absolutely is. We recently got on our street those goofy, I shouldn't call them goofy, but those posts in the middle of the road meant to calm traffic. And my beloved was quite happy to see this, because she said, it's good because people drive too fast on this street.
Right.
Rob, no, they don't. Like, and I promise.
Whoa! What do you mean they don't?
So what I'm saying is, it's all based on perception. My beloved thinks they're driving too fast. I don't think they're driving too fast.
Right.
So
right.
people.
That's fair.
Okay.
That's fair.
And so what you're hearing is what people perceive their neighborhoods to be like. People drive too fast, but. You know, they're mowing their front grass. Maybe they're sitting on the front porch. A car goes by at 48 or 53, and it seems fast, and they'll complain about it. Whatever. What the problem is, and that's why I think this is a false premise, because it's based on people's perceptions of how fast that car is moving. And now we're into the speed camera era where people driving 42 in a 30 are being ticketed, or even if they're driving 55 in a 40, they're being ticketed. And those are not the people we should be trying to catch.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Great. You're taking all my time. But anyway.
No, that's it. I'm done. You get the rest. That was 2 minutes, Deutschman.
All right.
Okay.
30 seconds. So I understand what you're saying about perception, but the last statement of what you just said is what your beloved is seeing, that people are speeding because they're going, as you said, 52 or 55. And you can see it in those. I thought maybe you were going to mention in one of those where they tell you what your speed you're going as you're coming down the road. And they're always, pretty well every car is above the anticipated speed limit. So what we've done is we've said, hey, as a community, we've said, look, this is the speed limit we want these roads to be at. I think the bigger issue is with the speed cameras, they help modify. Well, I mean, those. I take Kingsway Road behind Fairview Park Mall to my office, and there's one of those cameras that tells you what speed you're going, and I can tell you everyone slows down along that road. So there are things that, or you go down Franklin where it's 40, and you go past the school, and there is cameras there.
And it's 30 there.
Yeah. So people, now we can talk about that. And this is what I really want to talk about in the second part is once you get your infrastructure set up, or as you're setting up your infrastructure, because your beloved is correct. There are people speeding. You acknowledge that. The issue is how fast and what's the perception of how fast, but I'm not getting into that. The question then is, what is the right speed that we should be adjudicating at or moderating at or monitoring? And then what is the time of day that we should be monitoring that speed? And I think those are two issues that can be discussed and debated as we move along. And I equate that or a similar situation is what happened in Waterloo, for example. So prior to the last municipal election, Councillor Royce Bodley, if I got the name wrong, I apologize, had proposed a 30-kilometer speed limit in the neighborhoods, pretty well across the city of Waterloo, which they implemented. Once it's in play, after the election, and I'm sure they had a lot of feedback from people as they were campaigning, Waterloo Council, which had a number of new people as well, changed the speed limit from 30 to 40 in almost all the wards except for the one, which is sort of the core, uptown core ward. I want to say downtown because I grew up in Waterloo when downtown was still uptown, but that's a whole other issue too. But anyway, so my point is that there is speeding that's happening. We do want to reduce speed. And at the end of the day, I know, the term cash grab has been used by this regarding this, but look who's paying. The people who are speeding are paying. This is not
Rob,
every household is paying.
If you're driving 42, if you're driving 42 in a 30, that's not the maniac you're looking for. And that's the speeder that's paying.
Michael, you're talking to a personal injury lawyer that talks to people that have accidents all the time. I talk to many people in the course of a week about car accidents and what's transpired. It's not all maniacs going 180 or whatever you want to say they're going, okay, or joyriding or what have you. Any amount of speed. And our staff will tell you as well, regional staff have produced this information. If you're going 30 over or 20 over or 10 over, and the amount of injury that could potentially occur is still very lethal, even at the 20 or the 10. So the issue is we want people to drive at an appropriate speed that are aware of what's going on in our community. Pedestrians, people biking, people crossing the road. When you take a road at 40 that used to maybe take at 50 or 60, your awareness of what's occurring as you're driving and your ability to react to a dangerous situation is greatly enhanced. And that's what we're trying to achieve with all of this. And at the end of the day, I think the information is showing that speeds are coming down in these areas. But this is what I want to say to people. We need to get infrastructure in place, and we can always fine-tune it, just like Waterloo did, for example. We can talk about, okay, what times a day are we going to operate it? And you can even talk about at what point are we going to start to ticket people. So all of those sorts of questions and debate on fine tuning can happen, but let's get the infrastructure, and that's the hard work. And look, we're all human. We're never going to be perfect. We do the best we can. And as we move along and implement this, we will find better ways to improve it as we go along for everybody. And that's why it's important for everyone to ensure, for example, come election time, get involved, discuss, talk about these issues, and elect the type of council you feel reflects what you want to see happen in your community.
I'm coming around on that issue in a big way. Absolutely. Let your municipal councillors know the next election. You got lots of time. Hang on. I want people to know the next time we have a municipal election, like 3 years. No, not even 18 months. Let the people at the door know. Yeah, let them know. Let the people at the door know you don't want speed cameras anymore. Tell them that. I want to hear what happens. Okay, back over to you, sir.
Okay, so I was just going to say, I noticed, I see this quote all the time pop up on a certain Twitter X account. It says, "To the privileged, inconvenience feels like oppression." So I like to say, to the car driver, slowing down feels like tyranny.
Don't listen, Rob. Again, the 42 kilometer per hour maniac is not the maniac you're looking for. This is what we need to correct.
Right, and as a community, because we'll never.
I'm the community today.
Yeah.
Okay,
I agree, and your voice is important, Mike. So as a community, we will determine what we're going to do, and that's the best we can do. It'll never satisfy everyone, but we make our community a better place when we can start to slow down and make our roads safer for everybody, and that's important.
Okay. Before I let you go, Rob, because we still have about 90 seconds.
Okay.
Do you know what the revenue split is between the region and the camera operator?
Okay, so I know you're talking about Wellington is a different situation. That's a third-party service that's providing that. So the people that are operating that, what we're doing is we're setting up our own operator. We are the operator.
So that's where we're going to fund the salaries of 33 people. But
well, don't we want to provide good jobs in the community?
Oh my gosh, here we go. No, government should not be.
Mike,
government.
You just highlighted another win. Thank you very much.
For a win for what?
Win for the community.
Oh my God. The government should not be in the job creation business. It should be in the business of creating the conditions to create employment.
What are you talking about?
Oh my God.
The feds in the province just spent billions of dollars on EV plants.
Yes,
what are you talking about
create
the job creation.
To create the climate. And no, they shouldn't be into corporate welfare. Oh, this is a whole other conversation.
This is not corporate welfare.
Well, no, but we don't have to create more government jobs, Rob. We have enough. Trust me.
We're creating an infrastructure so
we're creating a cottage industry.
Now, and we can hire out the service to other municipalities because we'll have capacity.
Well, that's not a bad idea. We can make money off the other speeders, the other 42 kilometer per hour maniacs.
That to me is a revenue generator. What we generate internally is money that's going back into the community to create more safer roads
and more jobs.
Well, the jobs come with all of this.
Yes. Okay.
I love you. You're the voice of reason this morning. You're highlighting all the benefits.
I'm here for you, Robert. I appreciate this. As always, I'm already looking forward to next week.
See you, Mike.
Cheers, Rob. Rob Deutschman, Political R&D. Little back, little forth on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We are just over 60 seconds away from your update in the 570 News Center. So I don't have time to read all of the emails that have come in following the conversation we just had with Rob Deutschman on Political R&D about speed cameras. But don't worry. There's a couple of doozies in here that we will carry over into the Talkback Hour, which is coming up. The next 60 minutes, open line radio, so you can make a call and tell us what's on your mind. Maybe, like our emailers, you want to talk about speed cameras. We could talk a little bit more about Canada Post. We talked about it earlier today on the show. What do you do with a crown corporation that is losing billions of dollars? It was pointed out earlier that we shouldn't forget the mail delivery is still a service, like community centers and arenas. They're not expected to return profit or even necessarily be revenue neutral. But billions in losses? I don't know. What do we do with Canada Post? How do we push back as a community against speed cameras? We'll talk about it with the Talkback Hour coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage outside. Or you don't go out Friday night. Jaggedy yak.
Don't talk back.
Phone lines are yours. 519-570-2545. Star 570 and 1-800-570-5715. When I was out last evening doing some Farwell for hire with my buddy Rory, who listens to the show as well, he mentioned how therapeutic it is, even just knowing that this show and this radio station exist, where you can call in, share your thoughts on an issue, and get it off your chest. It feels pretty good. So feel free to do that during this Talkback Hour. Just going back to the last 30 minutes and our conversation with Rob Deutschman on political R&D. We were talking about speed cameras, and I just want to insist, the person doing 42 in a 30, especially on Sunday afternoon or sometime in mid-July, when school is not in session, that's when we create those 30 kilometer per hour school zones or community safety zones. That person doing 42 in a 30, or even the person doing 53 in a 40, these are not the maniacs you're looking for. They are not the maniacs you are looking for. And that's where I think we need to have a serious conversation about speed cameras, how they are calibrated, where they are located, when they are in effect, the times of day and the days of week. What is the speed it's calibrated at? If you want to make a 40 kilometer per hour zone and say, okay, anything over 46, maybe that's the maniac we're looking for. I don't know. I might start the bidding at 46. But this nonsense, anybody that gets a speeding ticket doing 42, I don't care what the posted sign says. And I'm sorry to say that, but that's, come on with your coming on. Paul sends an email to Mike at 570news.com. Those posts in the middle of the road, they say 40 kilometers per hour, but the speed limit sign says 50 kilometers per hour. Which speed do I follow? I would always default to the slower one. But remember, Paul, with those posts in the middle of the road, those 40s are kind of like the suggestion that's the speed you should travel through these barriers or around these barriers for your own safety. Just like when you're on a curve and the sign says, you know, you could tip if you're a big truck and you should do no more than 60 around this bend, that sort of thing, or this off-ramp or this flyover. I would always go with the lower one. But I think Rob's email hits it right on the head. Pun intended, because the hammer comes up in this email. Rob writes to Mike at 570news.com. If we now have speed cameras, do we also need the speed limit on city streets reduced to a slow stroll? If the cameras are controlling the speed, wouldn't 50 kilometers per hour on every city street not be sufficient? I have never found any data that indicated we needed to reduce speed on streets. All anecdotal stories, but zero data on how and why we need to reduce speed to a slow jog. If you kill the ant with the hammer, you do not also need to spray it with insecticide. If the speed cameras are the hammer, that should be enough. 50 kilometers has been a safe speed for decades and decades. Let's use some rational thought here. That's how we start the Talkback Hour. A couple of emails from the last half hour. Now we'll go to the phones. Tom is first. Good afternoon, Tom.
Yeah, hi, Mike. How are you?
Good.
I'm calling to see because both Australia and U.S. will not, you're not allowed to come into the country anymore from India. And they put the ban because of all the illegals and that are coming in.
You think we should do that in Canada?
Should do the thing.
Okay.
Pardon?
Yeah, I read your mind. Sorry, I shouldn't have interrupted. You want Canada to also ban?
Oh, we do. Like, look at Kitchener. What is this? Like, who allowed all these immigrants that are illegal here?
Wow. Oh, wow. How do you know they're illegal, Tom?
Well, because if U.S. and Australia says it is, then it is in Canada too. So
well,
just follow.
Okay, listen. Illegal immigrants, absolutely, we need to be cautious. But just because there are people of Indian descent in your community does not mean they are here illegally, my good sir. Frank, You're on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Hey, Mike, I just wanted to comment on the speed cameras as well.
Sure.
I will acknowledge the email you got. That's a good one. And I'll acknowledge what you've said about the public sector jobs. We don't need to pay them those kinds of salaries and benefits and all that goes with it. A private sector will do a better job on that. Now, as to the speed limits themselves is where I do have an issue. That's been brought up. Good points made in terms of what that should be. But what I will say is, when I'm in whatever speed zone, I use my cruise control as much as I can and set it, 2 kilometers below. So that's very helpful. The problem is here with the 30 kilometers an hour. Most cars, mine and most of my friends, cruise control only works when you're over 30 kilometers an hour. So you got to be going 31 or 32 to get that extra help. So we need to nudge up that speed limit at least to 35, and that would be helpful. Anyway, my points, Mike.
Thanks, Frank. I really appreciate that. It's funny that Frank mentions that because yesterday afternoon, when the show was done, my first Farwell for Hire job was really just a visit with my good friends Paul and Arlene, who have a family connection to cystic fibrosis, as well as a passion for the Toronto Maple Leafs and butter tarts. We had a great old time just having a visit and a nice talk, and I crushed some afternoon beer with my buddy Paul. But he talked about using his cruise control to go through the speed zone on Franklin Avenue in Kitchener, where it is 30. And I wondered, how do you get your car to lock in at 30? Maybe he does 31 or 32. I think I would be fidgeting too much. Maybe I need to get better at enabling my cruise control. I use it on the highway all the time. I've never used it in town, but better safe than sorry, right? Because if you're driving 42 and a 30, you're the maniac the speed camera is looking for. This is the Mike Farwell Show. Your Talkback Hour is underway, and a phone line is open for you. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. The Daily Talkback Hour is your opportunity to get something off your chest and onto the air. 519-570-2545, star 570 and 1-800-570-5715. Should Canada participate in the Golden Dome initiative? This defense system being proposed by U.S. President Donald Trump. He says it's going to cost $175 billion, and he expects to have it done by the end of his term, which is 2029. That is as ambitious as it gets, and there are some who are already saying that even at $175 billion, the price tag is a little bit low. But what the system would do is intercept missiles that are launched from the other side of the world or even from space. It's the Golden Dome, a missile defense shield, also defense against drones. I mean, in theory, I can see why it's not the worst idea ever. Again, I'm not certain on the price tag. And what I'm even more curious about is Canada's involvement in this. The president says that Prime Minister Carney has expressed an interest in being a partner. And then, of course, President Trump says Canada will pay its fair share because that's the way it's supposed to work, which, of course, it is. But two things spring to mind. How is it that we are going to find the means to pay our share of the Golden Dome missile defense system when we can't even meet our 2% commitment of GDP to NATO, for starters? And secondly, while we are in the midst of a bitter trade war, the heck are we doing talking about stuff like this? Shouldn't we get that other stuff hammered out first? Or is that just me? Am I the one that's just kind of missing the dots being connected on the Golden Dome story? I don't know, but that's something that has crossed my mind. And the other thing I can't shake, and Francis called earlier today, and I think asked the really pertinent question here. As we have more measles outbreaks or potential exposures to measles being reported around the community, first and foremost, explain to me, please, please, oh great and all knowledgeable one, how in HE double hockey sticks did we get here? And by here, I mean the place where we are reporting measles exposures and cases of measles far too similarly to how we reported cases of COVID-19 5 years ago. But how are we reporting cases of a disease that was all but eradicated 40 years ago? Like, what is going on? And Francis's question around it was, why is it that schools are being exposed to these potential cases now and suspension issues or suspension orders are being issued? Shouldn't this be something that's taken care of before the school year starts? Oh, it's the Labor Day weekend. School starts on Tuesday. Are my child's immunization records up to date? Because if not, my child will not be going back to school. I don't know why that deadline seems somehow arbitrary. And then 8-9 months later, we're sending out suspension orders to students who do not have their vaccination records up to date. How long does it take to get those vaccination records up to date? I'll go back to the phones. Zafari is with us. Good afternoon, Zafari.
Good afternoon, Mike. Could you please repeat one more time those Trump suggests something about the missile shooting?
Yeah,
whatever?
he wants to create a defense system so that missiles could be intercepted from around the world or even from outer space.
Okay. What do you or what we all think as a human that do we still believe that this Donald Trump is a president of all America, North America? I have a question. Why we should not be as Canadian, as peaceful like 20 years ago? I believe, Mike, even if you go around those different bees, right? If you don't touch them, they're not going to bite you, right? If you go around anything, any insect, anything, you touch them, you bother them, they're going to beat you, right?
Yeah, but Zafari, I think
one second, please, let me finish.
Yes,
let me finish,
okay,
Mike.
okay.
So why we should be involved of this to spending so much money instead of why we should not spend this much money for our kids' education, for the future of humanity to go this far? I feel Donald Trump, guys, he's a burden. He's a sick guy, I tell you, man. Whatever you think, he's sick. He's sick on his mind.
Okay. Thanks, Fari.
I get upset because why we should even talk about this thing?
Listen, I understand, and I appreciate your call. I do, and there's another perspective. What I was going to say, but then I was being rude, and I should have let Zafari finish. I, though, think that we would be naive to think that at some point, I wouldn't say necessarily that it's imminent, but we are a vast land with tremendous natural resources, and isn't it possible that sometime, some way, in an increasingly aggressive world, somebody might want to take by force some of those natural resources or a part of our vast land mass? I don't know. We're not trying to be aggressive. We're defensive. The Golden Dome would be a defense system. I could be way wrong on that. Maybe I'm misreading the tea leaves here, and I'm happy to be told that. Zafari says, don't involve yourself in a defense system against missiles being launched from the other side of the world, China. Don't worry about that. Worry about what's happening domestically. Worry about your kids' education, etc. Okay, maybe the whole idea of a missile defense system is a silly idea. What do you think? Talkback continues on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Phone lines open to you every day, noon till 1 for the Talkback Hour. Let's get right back to the calls. Brad, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. How you doing today?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Not too bad. Just a couple questions. I know you're a pretty smart guy. You probably know the answers. Back when Mark Carney was an advisor for Trudeau when he was prime minister, I heard a rumor that Canada got rid of all their gold reserves. I don't know if that's true, but if that's true, that kind of screws us. And then with the Gold Dome, I think absolutely we should do something about it, but I don't think now is the time. Just I think Canada's already screwed up right now. I think we need to worry about our country before we start helping outside the box.
All right, Brad, appreciate the call. I have not heard the rumor until just now, so I apologize if I'm not well read enough to know whether or not I can substantiate the rumor that Canada ridded itself of its gold reserves. It does not sound like something that we would have done, but I guess I'll do my best to find out the answer to that. I'm sorry, I don't have it off the top of my head. And I get your point along the lines of what Zafari said. Why spend over there when there are so many problems right here? This Golden Dome, and if I'm being honest with you, I think it's a bit of a flight of fancy here. I'm not sure that such a defense system will ever be implemented, or certainly not in the next 4 years. But it wouldn't be, this defense system, as I understand its proposition right now, would not be something that we are helping to fund because it helps the United States or other areas. It would actually be of benefit to us here in North America as well. So essentially, if, and again, I think this is all conjecture at this point because President Trump has a lot of lavish plans, doesn't he? But if this were something that Canada decided to invest in and be a part of for its own defense, it would be akin to walking and chewing gum at the same time. Can you beef up your own national defense systems while you are taking care of domestic problems here on the home front? You can probably, I would like to think we can do that. But your point on foreign aid generally, which I think is where you're kind of going with this, is very well taken. A lot of people have said that we should take care of our own house before we go and help build other houses. So I hear you on that count for sure. An update from the 570 News Center, and then we continue here on Talkback on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. So just to follow up on Brad's call a moment ago, no, now Prime Minister Mark Carney did not, while Governor of the Bank of Canada, sell all of our country's gold reserves. In fact, Canada started selling its gold reserves back in the 1980s, but this is not a function of the Bank of Canada. Rather, it's a function of the federal government's finance ministry. But by the numbers, and you'll remember that Mark Carney was the governor of the Bank of Canada from 2008 to 2013. When Mark Carney became the governor of the Bank of Canada, we held $106 million in gold reserves. When he left in 2013, we had $142 million in gold reserves. It is true that Canada has continued to sell off gold reserves because it is expensive to store and doesn't generate a whole heck of a lot of return. Other countries continue to hoard gold. Canada is not among them. But to say that now Prime Minister Mark Carney orchestrated the sale of Canada's entirety of gold reserves is a misleading statement. So I have learned in the last several minutes. Holy Hannah. Rob, are you in a wind tunnel?
I'm sorry there, Mike. No, I'm not.
I almost got a headache there for a second. I'm good now, though. Nice job.
Okay, heading into air, you think, things would be good. Anyway, just getting back to the Golden Dome thing, I think that's a fallacy. Like, it's all sizzle something, that sounds good, just like back in the 80s, Reagan and Star Wars and all that sort of thing,
Great reference, yeah.
Yeah. Now, if that was something that were to take effect, what? And I missed part of your show earlier. I listen all the time, and for the whole thing, just so you know.
Thank you for that.
What about NORAD? Did you guys speak about that? Would it be deemed obsolete or what?
Yeah, we did not talk about it, and that's a great question. I don't know that it would be, or if this would be a part of the overall Golden Dome. Again, much to your point, I think that Donald Trump is just, talking.
Yeah. That's he's trying to do everything at once too, right or wrong.
Absolutely.
Mostly wrong. Anyway, thanks a lot, Mike.
Thanks, Rob. I appreciate the call, and I appreciate the support and listening so loyally. It really does mean a lot. Yeah, what would it mean for NORAD if Golden Dome was the missile defense system in North America? Maybe it would be part of it. Maybe it would replace and or upgrade NORAD. So many questions. Again, this is something that just began from the Oval Office and U.S. President Donald Trump. Jody, good afternoon.
Hi, Mike. How are you doing today?
I'm doing just fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm all right, I guess. I'm just really disappointed in all this talk about prices going up and cutbacks, and I need to hear some good news for a change, like sometime now or soon, to help me have a little bit more glimpse of hope than I have. I don't know. It's just like everybody's just like being greedy.
Well, if I can be so bold as to quote from Hollywood, I believe it was Gordon Gekko who famously said, the character played by Michael Douglas in Wall Street, greed, for lack of a better word, is good. But Jody, your point is well taken. And listen, we have designed ourselves a system where greed is almost a guaranteed byproduct, right? Because it's a world that money makes the world turn, right? So that's how the old saying goes. Money makes the world go round, and the more you have, the more you can do. And because we are in pursuit of wealth in this capitalist economy of ours, then people tend to get a little bit greedy. If you're looking for good news stories, I point you directly to All News Afternoons with Paul McPhee and Aaron Anderson, because they deliver a daily good news report brought to you by our friends at Desjardins. I'm pretty sure you hear one on All News Mornings with Mark Douglas and Christine Clark. Your point is well taken in that regard. We could all use a little bit of a dose of the good stuff from time to time, and we certainly try to mix that in to our program on a regular basis. We talked earlier today about the provincial funding and the $10 million grant that our Waterloo Regional Health Network has received to continue moving forward our new hospital project here in the region. The plan, I think it's ambitious. I do. But I'm hearing from other sources that we can, in fact, get this done in the next 10 years, get that brand new acute care hospital built up by the University of Waterloo. So we were able to share that story with you. We had a great story just from the perspective of a family living with ALS, and the walk to End ALS is coming up about a month from now, June the 22nd, at the University of Waterloo. We told you about Fierce and Fit, which is a boxing program that supports people in our community with special needs. And we had one of those special needs boxers who's also now a coach in the studio with us today, talking about what Fierce and Fit has meant for him. And they're having a gala coming up in September that will raise some money to continue supporting those programs and these special needs athletes and individuals in our community. So we're mixing in as much as we can. And I get it. Like it's tough when it's like the double-edged sword when you're engaged in what's going on, right? It's good that you're engaged because you want to know what's going on. You want to be a part of the conversation. But then sometimes the more you know, the more frustrated you get. Trust me, I feel it because I'm here with you every day going through this. But that's why we have hours like this Talkback Hour. Maybe you've got something good news-ish to bring to the table, or maybe you've just got a perspective on the news of the day that you think we need to hear. It is therapeutic, getting it off your chest and onto the air. And that's what we let you do during the Talkback Hour every day here on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Thanks to those of you who have pointed out, and you can tell I haven't been on Franklin Avenue in a while. Franklin in Kitchener is no longer a 30, it's a 40, and there is no speed camera there right now. Thanks to Susan for the email to Mike at 570news.com and others who pointed out that it has been returned, if you will, to a 40 on Franklin Avenue in Kitchener. It came up when we were talking about speed cameras before. Look, if the limit says 40, you keep it under 45. Okay, that should be plenty. But these people who have been getting tickets for doing 42 and a 30, I still take issue with. And I think we do have to have a broader community conversation around how we are calibrating these speed cameras and the times of day and days of week when they are put into service. Because I believe, quite sincerely, that the people that we have been nabbing with speed cameras are not the people for whom the cameras were intended. These are not the kinds of speeders and or maniacs on the road we were looking for. But thank you for that. Do appreciate the email, Susan, and to others who let me know that the speed camera and the 30 kilometer per hour limit is not currently in place on Franklin Avenue. Let's get back to the phones on Talkback. Afif, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Good. First of all, I'm just upset about obviously Leafs. That was hurt.
You're still upset about the Leafs, eh?
Yeah, of course. It still stinks.
Afif, just remember, one of these days, like it's going to be the greatest day of our sporting lives because it's going to happen, right? The Leafs will someday win.
Exactly.
Okay.
But my other big thing is, does the stop sign rule count for bikers or like scooters?
It's funny you should ask that. There is this thing called the Idaho Stop. I believe it's Idaho. I'm pretty sure about that. And the Idaho Stop is a rule that applies to people on bicycles that says if you are approaching the intersection and it's clear to proceed, then you don't have to break stride. You just ride right on through there. So the answer is sort of.
Okay.
We don't have that rule here. So people on bicycles and scooters should be stopping at the stop signs. But
yeah, because I mean, one time I came up and I stopped at a stop sign, and I'm about to go, but all of a sudden one biker went literally right in front of me. I was like, oh my god! And okay, I was about to start, so I was worried like I'm going to hit him. So that's why I was just like.
All right, Afif, I'm sorry, but you're fading away. Your phone is fading away on me here, my friend.
Yeah, no, man. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I know I can hear you well through my headphones, but I don't think anybody else, they might be straining. So yes, Afif was talking about almost having hit a person on a bicycle as he was about to proceed after stopping at a stop sign because the bicyclist did not stop. And listen, we could sit here and quibble all day about how many vehicles actually come to a full stop at stop signs, couldn't we? Joe, over to you on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. How you doing?
Good, buddy. How are you?
Not too bad.
Good.
It's the speed cameras. I'm pretty sure I got dinged. Laurentian School.
Oh, yeah.
West Way.
That's a nasty one.
It was last week. It was probably 9 o'clock at night. I come back from a kid's baseball game. I didn't get to the minute right in front of the school. I see the camera sign. At that point, I was too late. I'm just going 60. And it's like, all right, well, I'll hit the brakes. But at that point, I'm already in front of the school. So pretty sure I'm going to get a ticket there. But I got one, I think it was last year down at the Keatsway School, 41 and 30. Come on, it's 6 o'clock on a Sunday night. Hey, it's ridiculous. I think they do good 9 to 5, 9 to 5, 8 to 5, and 7 to 5. But start putting them in. It's pitch dark. It's weekends. Why? We don't need them. Change them. Keep Doug Ford will do his thing, let me tell you, Mike.
All right, Joe. I appreciate that. Doug Ford says these cameras are revenue tools. Dylan, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Just quickly on the cameras, I totally agree. It's a money grab more than a compliance thing at this point. If they are going to keep them, like you say, they should be during school hours, and there should be a flashing light on the camera sign ahead of the camera. They do have signs ahead of every camera, so if you're paying attention, you should realize you're about to pass one, but should be a flashing light added. You should give the public as much opportunity to avoid that ridiculous ticket as possible. But the main reason I called, I know that you're doing your fundraising month here in May, and definitely kudos to you for that. June is quickly approaching, and this June, there's a 13th. Are you going to Dover?
Boy, you know what? I hate to say this. You know what, Dylan? June the 13th is also Taco Fest, and I'm supposed. If I can I'm going to make it happen. I got to make it happen. I have to be at Taco Fest as a judge in the evening. So if I can make it between end of show and start of Taco Fest, are you asking if can we go together? Is that what you're getting at?
You'd have to skip the morning and do the Talkback Hour in Dover for us to go together. But I'm definitely going. Great time last year and all the previous years, and looking forward to it.
Attaboy. Thanks for the reminder. I will make notes in my calendar and adjust my schedule accordingly.
Awesome.
Thanks, Dylan. Good to hear from you today. And I'm with Dylan, by the way. If the speed cameras, he says, put a flashing light. Yes, the signs are there, and it is well signed, but if you miss the sign, how about the flashing light to remind you, here's the camera. If they are designed to slow us down and not just take money out of our pockets, then give us every opportunity to do what you want us to do. Slow down. I like where Dylan's coming from on that. And we will ride safely to Dover on Friday, June the 13th. This is the Mike Farwell Show, your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I was just thinking during that commercial break, if Dylan and I both do end up in Dover but don't go together, good luck finding each other. Me, Dylan, and 99,998 other people in Port Dover on Friday the 13th. But a great day to look forward to. Willie, you're on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Hey, Mike, how are you doing today, bud?
I'm doing just fine, thank you, sir. How are you?
Well, it's a little rainy for my liking, but you know.
I think we're due, Willie, for a nice stretch of sunny days.
Yes, but couldn't it be a little bit warmer, though?
Also that, yes, sir.
Anyway, Wilmot Landgraf.
Yep.
Anybody ever suggest to you that maybe 3-5 years down the line, after they clear all that up and it's sitting there and no great, wonderful, big billion-dollar business has bought anything, they might decide to turn it into the new landfill?
That has not been suggested to me, no.
Oh, heard it here first.
What are you hearing, Willie? Who are you talking to? Come on.
I know a bunch of farmers and stuff, but there's an awful lot of stuff floating around. So that's one of the potential things that it's perfect spot. I don't know. The one in Waterloo is good till what, 2030, 31 or something? I'm not sure.
I think it's good for much longer than that. I think we still have a 25 to 30 year life cycle on our landfill.
Oh, is that right? Okay. I was under the impression that we only had another 5 or something on that.
I don't think so. I'll work to confirm that, but I thought we still had a slightly longer shelf life on that one.
Well, I hope so, because if you think that people were upset about them scamming the land, you wait till they decide to tell them that we're going to put a dump there.
All right, Willie, listen, try to stay dry today, and thanks for the call.
We'll do it. Thanks, Mike. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. That would shock me, quite frankly, because the idea here is to create industrial development that will create jobs. And a landfill would only go so far in that department, wouldn't it? Mark, you're on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. Hello again.
Hello again.
I've noticed the encampment, Mike, on Victoria Street is growing. I don't know if you've been down there lately, but it's growing again. Is it still in the works to get rid of it?
Yes, by the end of this year.
Okay, well, right now it's growing, Mike.
Funny how that works, eh, Mark?
Just letting you know.
All right, buddy. Thanks for letting me know. I'm not sure it's actually growing in number of people as opposed to just growing in size of structure. However, we got to leave it there because the size of the structures on that street corner, Weber and Victoria and Kitchener, they seem to be better built and larger accommodations of late. Willie got me thinking about our landfill site where I went yesterday as part of my Farwell for Hire duties, did the traditional dump run. And I think I might owe Malul Blamey some money, but I don't have time to tell the story today. So I'm going to tell the story tomorrow and you'll have to come back and tune in for it. Do I owe Malul Blamey some money after I did a dump run yesterday? We'll find out on the show tomorrow, and so much more. How about modular housing to help solve our crisis here in Canada of housing? All of that and more on tomorrow's show. I got to get out of here. My name's Mike Farwell.